Everything was perfect. Abuela was happy. The family was happy. You want to be a better sister? Apologize for ruining my life. Go on. Apologize.
Hey, hello, how do you do? Shady Doorags here. In my previous video on Encanto, I made a simple joke about how nobody wants to see me nitpick a movie that everyone loves. Then all of you posted in the comments about how you wanted to see me nitpick a movie that everyone loves. I suppose I should be happy that you intellectuals are willing to listen to any of my opinions, even the unpopular ones, but I'm too blinded by the fact that you showed the world that I, once again, could be wrong. As punishment, none of you are invited to my 920th birthday party. I want to reiterate that I do highly enjoy this movie and have a lot of good things to say about it. This isn't like Raya where I really want to tear into it. I'm genuinely happy about how much people are enjoying and praising Encanto. I just don't think it comes even close to being perfect. I compare Encanto to movies like Sonic the Hedgehog and Godzilla vs. Kong. There are very obvious flaws, but it pleases its target audience so much, it kind of feels pointless to make a big deal out of them. There's also the fact that Encanto doesn't feel like just another cash grab. The passion behind this project is definitely there. The people who made this film didn't just want to make money, they wanted to make something good. Honestly, I'm a lot more forgiving when it comes to those types of work. With all that being said, you guys asked for some nitpicking, so I'll gladly talk about one of the things that bothered me the most throughout this movie, that being the relationship between Mirabel and Isabella. I'm gonna start this conversation by saying I appreciate what Encanto wanted to do with these two characters. This is actually a topic that speaks to a personal part of my life. I've been in a relationship where I believed the other person lived an easy life and I somewhat resented them for it. I've also been in a relationship where someone told me they believed I lived an easy life and they resented me for it. So I'm very grateful that Disney wholeheartedly tried to portray both these perspectives in a fair manner that doesn't demonize either, but instead shows how both can improve. Keyword there being tried. I approve of the thought, but the execution needed a bit of work. Obviously, Mirabel doesn't think too fondly of Isabella. Why? Well, if you pay attention to everything Mirabel says and does, it's because Isabella was basically born perfect and Mirabel resents her for it.
You just seem like your life's been a dream since the moment you opened your eyes.
Mirabel thinks Isabella's perfect lifestyle has caused her sister to be unable to see things from a normal person's perspective, thus making her a prima donna. Also, Mirabel is very obviously jealous.
I might not be effortlessly perfect like Señorita Perfecta Isabela, who's never even had a bad hair day, but...
Okay, cool. Now let me ask you this. Why would someone watching the movie not like Isabella? Well, since the movie is from Mirabel's perspective, more than likely it should be for the same reason as Mirabel. Kinda, but not really. In the eyes of the audience, Isabella's unlikability isn't because of her perfection. It comes from her attitude. If you dislike this character, it's more than likely because she was ridiculously mean to Mirabel.
Hey sis, I want not a sound out of you.
But Mirabel does believe she's a prima donna because of her perfect lifestyle, so that means her attitude is something that could come from that background, right? To find out why Isabella is so mean, we have to shift over to her perspective. From her point of view, Isabella has every right to dislike Mirabel, because if Mirabel just knew her place, all of Isabella's efforts would come to fruition.
I've been stuck being perfect my whole entire life, and literally, the only thing you have ever done for me is mess things up!
And here's where my nitpick comes in. What the story wants us to believe is that Isabella has a history with Mirabel, that she has had constant moments in her life where she was working hard at being perfect and Mirabel messed them up for her on a consistent basis. This history would, from Isabella's perspective, justify her ill behavior towards Mirabel, since she's gotten to a point where she's fed up with playing nice, but it would just look like cruelty and stubbornness from Mirabel's perspective. The problem with this is that it isn't properly set up. We don't see the history between these two, we only see their current reactions to each other. Now that's not for lack of trying, mind you. There are 3 moments in the movie where Mirabel supposedly messes things up for Isabella. Here,
Nothing.
which was completely Isabella's fault. Here,
Sorry, what is your problem?
which was both of their faults. And here.
Obrigado.
You're
You're doing great.
Which wasn't either of their faults, though I will give some credit that from Isabella's perspective, it does look like it was Mirabel's fault. The point I'm trying to make is that the audience doesn't see the history of Mirabel messing things up for Isabella, which means the audience has to assume that Isabella is behaving the way she is simply because Mirabel doesn't have a gift. As someone who has been both a Mirabel and an Isabella, I don't find that to be a fair portrayal of Isabella's side. The showing of Isabella's attitude makes this relationship completely skewed in Mirabel's favor on who is right and who is wrong. From what we are shown, Isabella is in the wrong. Now, if the movie had intended for Isabella to solely be in the wrong, that would be one thing, but it clearly wanted to create a dynamic between these two where they both had wrongdoings on how they approached the relationship. I know it almost sounds like I'm saying I don't like Isabella being mean. That's not the case. As someone who's been in this type of relationship multiple times, it makes sense that Isabella would not be nice to Mirabel, but her motivations for being so need to match her dynamic within the relationship, or we're just gonna side with Mirabel even after we've learned everything. TLDR, what the movie wanted to present to us was two siblings who equally failed to see each other's perspectives, but it didn't give us the proper context for Isabella's perspective, making her appear to be the worst of the two even if you look at things from her side. Now, there was a very easy fix to this problem. At the beginning of the movie, where Mirabel is getting in everyone's way and setting up the celebration, instead of having Isabella slap her sister with her hair and give vague advice, have Isabella give Mirabel an order about the decorations. It could be a very simple order like, don't use these types of flowers. Then have Mirabel directly disobey Isabella because Mirabel wants to help and she thinks she knows better. This would then cause some minor inconvenience to happen that Isabella blows out of proportion because she's worked hard to make everything perfect. Or Abuela could blow it out of proportion, showing disappointment in Isabella. Isabella could also say something like, of course, this always happens when Mirabel gets involved. If we had a scene like that, instead of the hair slap scene, it would have given us much needed context for Isabella's anger and rudeness. We'll be able to see that from her perspective, she's been through plenty of trials with Mirabel and now she's had enough. But it would be shown from Mirabel's perspective, who would think her sister is just overreacting because something in her perfect life went slightly awry. As is, Encanto does show a nice scenario of two siblings who could learn to get along better, but in my opinion, it could have been made a little stronger with just a few simple tweaks. This has been Shady Doorags. So long, farewell, Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.